Alright, and of course, y'all know that it's a weekly tradition that we talk about the Russia-Ukraine war here on the podcast. Ukraine had another insane offensive. I know the last 3 weeks I've been talking about insane offensives, but that's because every time I wake up and check the news, it's like, oh yeah, they took more territory. Russia's drafting has been going even worse than we talked about last week. A bunch of people are literally being handed like rusty AKs. It's not looking too hot. Even then, they're still sending these people to the front lines incredibly quickly. Like 2 weeks ago, they started announcing the draft. You think maybe at least a month of training? No, they're already finding people on the front lines that got drafted like a week ago. They're just getting sent straight into the microwave. But let's talk about it. Ukraine takes swaths of territory despite Russia's mobilization. In the 32nd week of the war, advances in the east and south show Kyiv is maintaining its counteroffensive momentum while Moscow is pulling back forces from Crimea. Yeah, things aren't going too hot. This is especially nutty when you think about the fact that Vladimir Putin framed this all as a special military operation. Everyone thought, myself included, that he was going to march into Kyiv and take it in like 2 days. Kiev, whatever, sorry, I'm American, I'm not good at pronunciations. And here he is 32 weeks later having to do a full mobilization, losing support at home. People don't like being drafted, believe it or not, especially when they go to get equipment and they're like, hey, there is none. By the way, you don't get training. Good luck on the front lines. Russia has never really been that great at military strategy, at least from what we've seen in history. They've always just used like the human wave model. I just think that doesn't really work in modern warfare. When you have equipment, that means that like a well-trained platoon of 50 guys can theoretically be more efficient than just 1,000 dudes that don't know what they're doing. Not in terms of like literal combat. 1,000 dudes standing around that don't know how to run an artillery gun, though, is pretty useless to you. Overall, it seems like Ukraine just keeps getting momentum on its side, but what's scary about that is Russia does not like the embarrassment it's being put through, so I hope they don't press the big red button. Russia's mobilization of 200,000 conscripts seems to have had no impact during the 32nd week of the war, as Ukrainian forces recapture more territory in the east and south of the country. On September 30th, Ukrainian forces advancing from Izium surrounded Lyman in the eastern Donetsk region and recaptured the town the following day. The spectacular encirclement of the strategic town and expanse of surrounding territory trapped Russian personnel trying to flee. So this situation was especially embarrassing. Last Friday, basically Putin did this huge fake election thing in the regions that they were occupying, saying that they were going to get to choose if they want to be a part of Russia. And unsurprisingly, over 90% of the vote ended up being magically for Russia. It's weird, when a bunch of people have fled their home because it's in a war zone, there's dramatically less people to vote. And literally there was footage of the lady reading the ballots and saying that they were for Russia when they were blank. Like if you zoom in, there's nothing on them. It was a sham election, but anyways, they do this sham election. Putin does this huge speech saying that that is now Russian territory. They will defend it with all means necessary. This is now Russia. It will forever be Russia. And 2 days later, they lost most of the territory that they had just said that they were annexing, which does not make them look good, bro. You can't come out and give a speech about how this is going to be Russia forever and always, and you'll use all your military might to defend it, and then lose it a day later. I think that is why, though, people are starting to get a lot more nervous about the nuclear thing, is Putin's always been like, no, I'm super tough, I'm a big tough guy. Well, big tough guys, when backed into a corner and being absolutely styled on by a military that was supposed to be 1/18 their strength, tend to do stupid things, you know? I don't even know why he started the war in the first place, but whatever it is, it's not going too hot, and he doesn't seem like the type of guy that's just going to calm down and say, whatever, I made a mistake, I'll calmly step down from being president of Russia and hand over the power. That's not going to happen, and I think if he just admits defeat, then the Russian people are going to be very, very unhappy. They've been cut off from the rest of the world for literally nothing if they admit defeat. Biden says risk of nuclear Armageddon highest in 60 years. U.S. president compares threat now with the Cuban Missile Crisis, which brought the world to brink of catastrophe in 1962. Just what you love to hear on an early weekend morning. Everyone thinks that we're getting closer and closer to nuclear annihilation. I think nuclear war is a very bad idea. I don't think there's really any way it stays contained. One, nuclear fallout is going to spread. Ukraine is close to Europe. If anything gets used, it's going to affect them, like it or not. Two, if you start doing the tit for tat thing, very quickly it ends up in global thermonuclear war. Like, there's not many instances where they launch a nuke, we launch one back, and then everyone just stands there and looks at each other and wags their fingers and says, okay, let's stop it now. No, if it pops off, it's popping off, and that's not going to be fun for literally anybody involved. I think the worst part about all of this is the fact that, Russia really does not have many checks and balances in place when it comes to any of this. If the United States wanted to do something, we could have a crazy person in charge. But there's still people along the chain that have to sign off, give the code, press the button. In Russia, I don't know if that is necessarily as there. Maybe back in the day under the USSR, but I don't think people say no to Putin. In fact, if anything, Putin probably sleeps with an iPad next to him with the codes on it ready to go just because it makes him feel more powerful. Especially after how much he's been getting his butt kicked in Ukraine, he probably just sits there and looks at the button and is like, they don't know that I can press the button. I could press it. I could be the guy to press the button. And everyone's like, Vladimir, please don't. And he's like, but I could. And he, referring to Biden, challenged the Russian nuclear doctrine, warning that the use of lower-yield tactical weapons could quickly spiral out of control. I don't think there's any such thing as the ability to easily use a tactical weapon and not end up with Armageddon. We have not faced the prospect of Armageddon since Kennedy and the Cuban Missile Crisis. Yeah, the Cuban Missile Crisis was not a very good vibe. I think one of the main generals that was involved in it had literally said that we were steps away from nuclear war and we're just really lucky that everybody involved was thinking rationally. And when you look at everything that's gone down with Russia and Ukraine, I don't think thinking rationally comes to the forefront of my mind. I don't think we're gonna have nuclear Armageddon, but living in a time where it's back on the menu as a possibility is not exactly reassuring. I'm not going to spend my life sweating about it though and stressing about it, and I don't think you guys should either. Oh my goodness, I can't talk. You guys get what I'm trying to say, because there's nothing we can do about it. Nuclear weapons are out of the average person's control, and I don't think the average person would be very supportive. And if for whatever reason it does happen, then there's really no reason to be worried, because we're all just going to be, I don't know, living the new Fallout life, walking around trying to find some Nuka-Cola. Either way, that's going to be it for the Russia update this week. Thank you all so much for sticking around. I got more stories, though, so don't leave. But thanks for watching the Russia part.